B. Collins.
Peter B. Collins, News and Comment. It's Thursday, February 9th, 2017. A reminder, Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, we'll deliver the News and Comment podcast with a live video feed on Facebook. Check it out if you dare. Well, my friend Roger Schuler, the lead chronicler of the events in Alabama that led to the railroading into federal prison of one Don Siegelman, the former Democratic governor of Alabama, produced a bizarre scene yesterday that prompted Schuler to headline a story, "How Sick Is This?" And it was captured, I'm convinced inadvertently, by the editors at my local paper, the San Francisco Chronicle. Because on page A4, the featured story with a smiling picture of Jeff Sessions reads, "Sessions is confirmed in partisan vote as Attorney General." And just above it, in a news digest that contains 5 different stories, Story 3 reads, "Prison Release. Former Alabama Governor Don Siegelman was released Wednesday from a federal prison in Louisiana, where he was serving a 6-year sentence for bribery and obstruction of justice. He flew home on a commercial flight to Birmingham to serve the remainder of his sentence on house arrest." Yes, how sick is this? Jeff Sessions is part of the Republican machine in Alabama that prosecuted Don Siegelman the first time and failed, and then drummed up a second case, despite the fact that the statute of limitations had expired on the dubious charges that they brought. And Karl Rove got his buddies to close ranks, to coach a witness, to produce some false testimony. And faster than Who Shot Bob, Don Siegelman was convicted along with Richard Scrushy. And we've covered this case in great detail. All you got to do is go to peterbcollins.com and enter Siegelman in the search window. And you'll see the hours of conversations with Siegelman himself, with Scrushy, with Roger Schuler, with other journalists, including Scott Horton. And it's a case that should have drawn a pardon or commutation from Barack Obama soon after he took office in 2009. But he let Don Siegelman rot in prison. And it's unclear when I can get an interview with the former governor because of the terms of his parole. But the request is in, and as soon as he is available and able, we'll bring his voice to you once again. But the corrupt system in Alabama there continues to this day, because Jeff Sessions handed his Senate seat, actually it's the governor who handed it, to Luther Strange, who is the current Attorney General of Alabama. Now, what do all these people have in common? They have all been exposed as corrupt and immoral individuals despite their claim to being uber Christians. And I'm talking about Sessions, who Roger Schuler reports is a closeted gay man, about Jeff Sessions' support for his buddy Bill Pryor, also accused of being a closeted gay man and on the short list for a Trump appointment to the Supreme Court. And then there's Luther Strange, the current Attorney General, who yesterday was named by Governor Bob Riley to succeed Jeff Sessions in the United States Senate. Now let's look at this, all right? And these all connect to Roger Schuler and his courageous reporting, for which he has paid an incredible price. He now lives in exile in a shitty motel in Missouri, hoping week to week that contributions at the Legal Schnauzer blog will keep him and his wife Carol afloat. And Carol was just summoned to court to face charges of assault on a deputy when it was the deputy who assaulted her and broke her arm in an illegal eviction process. But let's come back to Schuler's reporting, all right? He's the one who exposed a couple of years ago that Attorney General Luther Strange had an extramarital affair with a married woman named Jessica Medeiros Garrison. And if you go to the Legal Schnauzer blog, you can see that the claims of defamation by Garrison against Schuler continue. And we believe they were behind his bogus imprisonment for alleged contempt of court, where Schuler served 5 months in jail. And you got to understand that what Roger Schuler exposed was what his sources told him was an affair between Garrison, the campaign operator who then became a staff member of the Attorney General's office, and now Jeff Sessions is going to be replaced by Luther Strange. And who is it who is appointing him? It's already happened. He was sworn in today. The appointment was made by the embattled governor of Alabama, Republican Robert Bentley. And Roger Schuler accurately exposed Bob Bentley's illicit relationship with a top staffer that busted up the governor's 50-year marriage. And so look at how sordid this is. It is a cesspool of injustice, corruption, and cronyism in Alabama. And it survives and thrives the way they have closed ranks and have solidarity here to promote the next philanderer who holds Christian values. And, you know, I don't judge people who have sex, no matter what kind of sex they have. But when they purport to be better than the rest of us, family values Christians, and then they try to punish people who accurately report on their affairs, we've got a problem with a capital H, and that spells hypocrite. So Jeff Sessions is damaged goods, but he's now the Attorney General of the United States, and he can promote more voter suppression. He can limit the work of the Civil Rights Division at the Justice Department. He can ignore the will of voters in multiple states where marijuana has been legalized by continuing to promote federal crackdowns on marijuana, even medical marijuana distributors. On immigration, Jeff Sessions can provide the legal backup to the ill-considered and often illegal intentions of the Trump administration. He's going to be a monster. The Democrats couldn't stop him. And it was a very ugly process that ultimately produced his confirmation yesterday on a party line 52 to 47 vote. Only one Democrat broke ranks, and that is Joe Manchin, the not so much a Democrat from West Virginia. And so that's what it took to get Jeff Sessions confirmed. But the cost of this to the Republicans could be great. And the treatment of Elizabeth Warren, when they used parliamentary procedure and the infrequently used, I think the last time Rule 19 was invoked was in the 1950s. And Mitch McConnell dredged it up, and they gagged Elizabeth Warren. Now, a lot of Republicans are saying that she's just a grandstander. She's running for president in 2020. She's got a new book coming out, and this is all part of an orchestrated effort to build up Elizabeth Warren. Maybe that's her intention. But I don't see it that way. And I like a lot of things about Elizabeth Warren, but I don't consider her to be presidential material. Her foreign policy ranges from ignorant to bad. She is excellent on domestic policies, particularly when it comes to the economy. At any rate, trying to turn this into grandstanding by Warren does not wipe away the fact that the Republicans all joined together to suppress the speech of a senator who was criticizing a nominee for racist background. And the fact that that nominee happened to be a colleague of theirs in the Senate who got to vote present on his own confirmation yesterday is irrelevant. And I am pleased to see that my new senator from California, a fresh woman, if you will, has found her voice already. And Kamala Harris has stood firm with Elizabeth Warren. Yesterday, she said, for a U.S. senator to be shut down while she's quoting one of the greatest Americans who's lived, Coretta Scott King, who is speaking about injustice, who is speaking about civil rights, to be shut down for a recital of those words is outrageous. The truth is uncomfortable, but just because it makes you uncomfortable doesn't mean it shouldn't be spoken. I can't suppose to read the mind and thoughts of McConnell, but I will say we have a history in our country that is a fact. And because it is an ugly fact, some people would like to forget it and not be reminded of it. I'm new to the Senate, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the strategic use of these various rules. But it didn't silence her. And as you may know, after Warren was gagged and told to take her seat, Bernie Sanders and another member of Congress, of the Senate, actually read the rest of the letter. And Dianne Feinstein said that makes it even more offensive because they allowed male colleagues to read the exact same passages without batting an eye. And to her credit, Kamala Harris, who, by the way, I voted for but unenthusiastically because I don't have anything against Kamala Harris. But she ran for the United States Senate in an easy race where she was not forced to define herself on critical issues like surveillance, critical issues like foreign policy. She took a lot of Me Too positions with Hillary Clinton, and so I am pleased to see that the very first bill that she's put in the hopper, introduced on the Senate floor today, is a bill to guarantee legal counsel for refugees and other travelers blocked at U.S. ports of entry. I think that is an excellent bill, and I haven't seen the details of it, but based on that limited description, I would probably support it. Now, we're hearing, and I want to credit Ryan Devereaux at The Intercept, that there is a new executive order filtering through the administration, and that they have quietly made preparations over at Immigration and Customs Enforcement to begin what appears to be mass deportations. Now, to be fair, and I like to be fair, Barack Obama presided over the deportation of more than 2 million people while he was president. The number could be higher than that. And how fast will Donald Trump try to run up his scoreboard of deportations to beat Obama? I can't say, but based on what we're hearing, inside the immigration offices, they have called, well, first of all, let me say that Trump has called for construction of new private prisons to hold immigrants along the Mexican border. And he's also directed Homeland Security to allocate all legally available resources to immediately assign asylum officers to immigration detention facilities. Now, what they're doing is, if this is accurate, represents a very perverse set of priorities. Because by rounding up these employees who are tasked with evaluating the asylum claims of people who have reached this country, they're supposed to conduct in-person interviews to detect what are called CF and RF. Does this immigrant have a credible fear or a reasonable fear that they would be tortured or otherwise compromised if they were returned to their home country? These evaluations are going to be taking place at the 2 private prisons run by the company that used to be called Corrections Corporation of America in Eloy and Florence, Arizona. And so they're recruiting volunteers inside Homeland Security to be deployed to create the basis to deport the people who appear to be most vulnerable and most in need of protection, those who have sought asylum. Now, certainly some people make false claims for asylum. I don't dispute that. But it appears that these people are going to be told to reject as many of these claims as they possibly can to enable them to be deported. So the Trump administration said the executive branch will end the abuse of parole and asylum provisions currently used to prevent the lawful removal of removable aliens. Now, to make this your priority, Trump said he was going to get criminals out. Most people probably don't have a serious problem with that, depending on how criminal is defined. But the idea that they're going to begin by removing people who've made a claim that they will be harmed if they are deported, that is sick and twisted. Corrections Corporation of America, they're chomping at the bit. They're drooling over the opportunities of the Trump administration. They came up with a new name, Core Civic. But don't be fooled, it's the same goons that have been running these hellholes for years. And our immigration prisons are a deep disgrace. They operated at subconstitutional levels. Many people who are held there are harmed. Women are abused, and some are raped. Some give sexual favors to try to get benefits. It's really ugly. Now, meanwhile, Trump's tweeting, attacking federal judges over his dispute with them about the executive order travel ban, and in particular, Judge Robart, James Robart in Seattle, have created problems even bigger for Trump. Because now his Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch, has been drawn into that controversy. And it's a little convoluted because in a private meeting with Democratic Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut yesterday, Gorsuch reportedly called the president's attack on independent judges demoralizing and disheartening. And those comments have now been confirmed by one of the White House advisors working to advance the Gorsuch confirmation. So, despite claims by Republicans, he actually did say these things, and he has affirmed that. But this now links his confirmation to the travel ban controversy. And Trump, of course, couldn't attack his own Supreme Court nominee, or, well, he could. But he was wise enough to, use some self-control. Instead, he attacked Blumenthal. So, according to Mike McConnell, a former federal judge who directs the Constitutional Law Center at Stanford, this is highly unusual. Trump is shredding long-standing norms of etiquette and interbranch comity, and he called Trump's comments extremely self-defeating and self-destructive because of their potential to sway judges to rule against Trump. And I think that is a valid point. And this really could create a big breach because the travel ban case might reach the Supreme Court in the near future. Democrats have additional incentive to slow down or block the confirmation of Judge Gorsuch. I think it would be a much safer bet to count on the current 8 members to produce a 5-3 decision in opposition to the travel ban than if you had the full 9 members, including Gorsuch. That's speculation, but that's my view. So Trump is not the first president to criticize a court. You may recall during the 2010 State of the Union address, Barack Obama looked over at the robed members of the Supreme Court and slammed them for their decision on Citizens United. We cheered it at the time, but it was, stepping outside of the norms. So this is something that will continue, and it is fueled by Trump's inability to control himself and his compulsive tweeting. So let's go to the Twitter. I hate Twitter. Trump tweeting. Senator Richard Blumenthal, who never fought in Vietnam when he said for years he had, major lie, now represents what Judge Gorsuch told him, ? Now, Gorsuch has confirmed what Blumenthal said Gorsuch said to him. But that doesn't bother Trump. Facts never get in the way. Then he attacked Chris Cuomo because Cuomo interviewed Blumenthal on CNN, which Trump is boycotting, but took a peek at apparently this morning. And Trump tweeted, Chris Cuomo in his interview with Blumenthal never asked him about his long-term lie about his brave service in Vietnam. All caps, fake news, exclamation point. Well, Cuomo did ask Blumenthal about that. And Cuomo tweeted back, sadly, POTUS is just wrong about the facts. It was my first point to the senator about his having misrepresented military career. Sigh. Now, Trump does not appear to recognize how much he pisses on his own pants every day. We can smell it, but apparently he can't. And so this will continue to spin and spiral forward. Trump also tweeted attacks against John McCain over the issues of the botched attack in Yemen that the White House says was beautiful, brilliant, fabulous, and spectacular. Trump tweeting, McCain should not be talking about the success or failure of a mission to the media, only emboldens the enemy. Now, which enemy? The media? And his thought carried on to the next tweet, he's been losing, so, jump. Long, he doesn't know how to win anymore. Just look at the mess our country is in. Bogged down in conflict all over the place. Our hero. And if there was another tweet, I don't have it here. And I don't care. And here's a curious development or factor. Despite all the attention that Donald Trump has drawn to Twitter, yesterday it reported earnings and profits, both of which were down. Losses are up, and the stock tanked by 9% in a single day of trading. Twitter is further burdened because it's not attractive to an acquisition or an acquirer because it has given away so much stock to its employees. And let's see, monthly active users inched up from 305 million at the end of 2015 to 319 million at the end of 2016. And we don't know that Trump has any stock in Twitter, but he does promote other things he has stock in, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Every day I like to pause and thank the people who support my work with your subscriptions to the Peter B. Collins podcast. I'm delighted to see that one of my favorite listeners, Olivier de Merlot, who lives in Switzerland, just renewed his annual subscription. Thanks, Olivier. And he frequently emails me with items that he finds in the American media that I haven't seen. I really appreciate that, Olivier. Andy Krieger gave us his monthly contribution along with Jason Spitzer and the amazing Joe Carson. I appreciate each and every one of you. And if you're not a subscriber and there's money in your bank account, can we talk? I'd appreciate your support. I don't make much money doing this. I'd like to, but I don't. And yet I continue because I believe there's a need for the kind of commentary that I offer. I'm about the only lefty who accurately predicted that Hillary Clinton would lose the election. And I have insights that are based on my experience watching politics since Nixon was our president. And I share those with you every day. And if you find that valuable, please validate it. Take out a subscription. Come on over to peterbcollins.com. You click menu, pull it down, click on Become a Subscriber, go to the sign-up page, and from there you get to choose what level of support you can offer. Whatever it is, I thank you. Well, we have a new administration, and it's time for a new surge in Afghanistan, right? Obama fell for that. He surged troops twice into Afghanistan before paring back the soldier population to about 8,400, which is where it is today. And General John Nicholson, the commander in the longest-running U.S. war, went to Congress yesterday and said, I need a few more troops to train up these Afghans. Now, we have spent billions of dollars in over 10 years trying to train Afghan fighters. And it is a fool's errand. It is a country that's not united. It is riven by tribal and power play disputes. And we should have gotten out of there a long time ago. Tomorrow I'm going to be releasing an interview with the outspoken former State Department official Chaz W. Freeman. And he talks quite frankly about the mess in Afghanistan. And, he had been considered for an appointment to the Obama administration and he withdrew after attacks from supporters of Israel. And Chaz Freeman said if he'd been there in that first meeting in February of 2009, he would have said, let's get out of Afghanistan. And he figured that Obama would have fired him within about 5 minutes. So that beat goes on, and Trump has never really taken a public position that I know of about Afghanistan, American involvement, whether to get in or get out. So we'll have to see how he responds to this plea for more troops. Well, the construction has resumed for the Dakota Access Pipeline in North Dakota. The workers didn't waste any time, starting to drill and prepare to go under the Missouri River. And legal beagles are working feverishly to file challenges to this action. And there are some important questions. Like, as the Obama administration had left it, there were environmental reviews that were likely to take years, and now the Corps of Engineers, ordered by Trump, has just said, no, never mind, we don't need to do that. Not necessary. We got all the information we need. And this is compounded by Trump's conflict of interest. We know he's got $500,000 invested in Energy Transfer Partners, the builder, and he received donations from its CEO. But, that doesn't matter. We'll get to the latest conflict of interest in a couple of minutes here. My friend Steve Horn, who writes for DSmog Blog, is the first I've seen to report that the White House has appointed Mike Catanzaro as the top energy advisor to Trump. Now, this is the guy who said he's going to drain the swamp and no lobbyists and blah, blah, blah. Catanzaro is a deep lobbyist for Devon Energy, Encana Oil and Gas, American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers Association, the Hess Oil Company. And he has a whole history of being pro-industry and anti-environment. He's a climate science denier. And his lobbying disclosure forms show the heavy hitters that he has lobbied for before. Quote, this is likely to be the most influential domestic policy energy position within the White House and will comfort industry and conservatives who view him as a champion for free market energy and environment policy. He started off on the Senate Environment Committee working for Jim Inhofe. Beautiful, isn't it? And meanwhile, science is under attack, as the Orwellian approach by the Republicans is they want to restore science to the governance of the Environmental Protection Agency. And this comes after a fake news blast over the past weekend that was stoked by every right-wing outlet, alt-right, and the big fat Rush Limbaugh radio show. I heard him piling onto this the other day. And what surfaced is an alleged whistleblower named John Bates, a NOAA scientist. He had some quibbles about the documentation, about things like footnotes and disclosures on a science report that was published a couple of years ago. And he knew that his complaints were going to be twisted by the climate deniers. He predicted it. I knew people would misuse this, he said. And the Daily Mail, actually the Mail on Sunday newspaper from London, ran right down the field with this and turned it into a sensational crisis. Exposed, they wrote, how world leaders were duped into investing billions over manipulated global warming data. Well, that's bullshit. And the Republicans know it. And I credit Kevin Gosztola at Shadowproof for giving the backstory as Lamar Smith, the Republican from Texas who chairs the House Science Committee, is promoting the idea of what I said, returning to science. But, of course, their idea, they call it the Secret Science Reform Act. And they only want publicly documented data to be used by the EPA, claiming that that will correct all of the overreach. And, of course, this guy Smith, Lamar Smith, has gotten over $600,000 in campaign contributions from oil and gas since he's been in Congress. And this, this feint that they are pro-science is just that. It is a big, big lie. In North Carolina, a 3-judge panel is put on hold the last-ditch effort by lame duck Republicans to hobble the incoming Democratic governor, Roy Cooper. One of the methods was to require that his cabinet appointees get confirmation from the state Senate like happens on the federal level. But that had never been the case before in North Carolina. And so the latest battle is this 3-judge panel blocked a new law that required the confirmation, and we'll see how that is appealed up the chain. Kellyanne Conway, as I referenced a little earlier, got herself in trouble. On Fox News this morning, she said, go buy Ivanka's stuff because, she shares her president's view that Ivanka is being punished by Nordstrom and other outlets who are dropping her fashion and accessories lines. And the stores are doing it because the shit's not selling. Now, it may be that boycotts are what keeps sales from growing, but this is a free market decision by these companies. But the bully in the White House and his mouthpiece, Kellyanne, are saying, this is unfair, and the best way you can, deal with that is to buy from the Ivanka line. Well, Trump can get away with that because our ethics laws don't apply to the president. But Kellyanne can't. Federal ethics rules state that an employee of the government's executive branch shall not use his public office for his own private gain, for the endorsement of any product, service, or enterprise, or for the private gain of friends, relatives, or persons with whom the employee is affiliated in a non-government capacity. And at Public Citizen, they go public saying that such a sales pitch violates 5 CFR 2635.702. And that's the citation I just quoted to you. In Arizona, a man who was a friend of the 2 guys who took the bait and went to Garland, Texas, when Pamela Geller staged this provocative Prophet Muhammad cartoon contest, and the 2 friends, Elton Simpson and Nadir Sufi, started shooting, and they were actually killed by the police there, the only people killed in that event. But Abdul Malik Abdul Karim, an American-born Muslim convert who was a friend of the 2 shooters, who was not anywhere near the scene, he was in Arizona, not in Texas that night, well, he nevertheless is convicted of conspiring to support a foreign terrorist organization, interstate transportation of firearms, and other charges with a 30-year federal prison sentence. Justice? I don't think so. Protesters have a new wrinkle. They're planning to send postcards to the real president. Postcards to Bannon is the campaign, and it was dreamed up by some activists across the country, and they're trying to get all kinds of people to join in and focus on Bannon and fill his inbox at the White House. I think it's clever and fun, but I don't think it'll make any difference. And finally, I'm linking to a thought-provoking op-ed that was published by The Guardian today by a man named James S. Gordon, who I am not familiar with. And he basically portrays Trump as a Shakespearean fool, the fool that is a potent truth-teller. Now, I don't agree with everything that this man writes, but I invite you to read it and think about this, because Trump is a public fool. And he blurts out what he believes to be these great truths, that terrorists are infiltrating with refugees and they want to kill all of us. And the op-ed reads, "Fools serve the collective order by challenging those whose ignorance and blindness threaten it. They are meant to be instruments of awareness, not rulers. Impossible to imagine Lear's fool succeeding him. Trump will not address his own limitations, cannot tolerate criticism, and takes himself dangerously seriously. This makes him a seriously flawed fool. He believes his own hyperbole and threatens democratic order." But late in the essay, James Gordon turns the focus on us. He says the Joker who is now our president has served an important function, waking us up to what we've not yet admitted in ourselves or accomplished in our country. He is, without realizing it, challenging us to grow in self-awareness, to act in ways that respect and fulfill what is best in ourselves and our democracy. Think about that. And let me know how you react. My email is peter@peterbcollins.com. And this podcast is available on YouTube when I remember to push the right buttons.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to